The moment Clint Eastwood walked onto the set of Jimmy Kimmel's show, there was an immediate electricity in the air, the kind that can't be scripted or engineered, only felt. At 94, Eastwood carried with him the weight of cinematic legend, a living embodiment of American grit whose squint alone could silence a room. The audience stood and applauded not because they were prompted, but because reverence demanded it. Jimmy greeted him with his signature charm, but even he seemed to sense the gravity of the moment, dialing back his usual antics out of respect. The conversation began amiably enough, starting with Eastwood's latest directorial project, a sparse western centered on redemption, legacy, and the last embers of fading justice. Clint spoke with conviction, his gravelly voice deliberate, his stories rich with texture, each pause filled with more meaning than most men's paragraphs. The crowd hung on his every word, even as Jimmy tried now and then to inject lightness, joking about Clint's refusal to retire. "You've made more films in your 80s than most people make in their whole careers," Jimmy teased. "What's your secret?" Clint leaned in slowly, a smirk barely twitching at the edge of his mouth. "Staying the hell out of politics," he growled, earning a knowing laugh from the crowd. But the irony was sharp because politics was exactly where the conversation was about to head, and not by accident. Jimmy's producers had pushed for it. In the post-Trump era, they argued, everything was political. Legends like Eastwood couldn't be spared from the relevance test. So Jimmy, after some hesitation, nudged the topic forward. "You mentioned staying out of politics, but you've made headlines before, speaking at the RNC, making statements about cancel culture, that empty chair moment. Do you still stand by all of it?" Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, that trademark squint amplifying the tension. "I stand by thinking for myself," he replied. "That doesn't mean I agree with everybody. Just means I'm not afraid to say what I see." Jimmy nodded, but pushed again. "Do you ever feel that maybe some of those comments, like the chair thing, undermined the very work you were trying to promote? I mean, some people felt it turned you into a meme." The smile faded completely from Clint's face. "Son, I've been around long enough to know that people twist whatever they want to fit their narrative. That chair moment wasn't for laughs. It was a statement about power and who gets to speak for who. Some folks turned it into a joke. That's on them." Duh. Jimmy leaned back, but there was an edge in his tone now. When public figures lean too far into commentary, especially in a time like this, they risk being more divisive than helpful. Clint's voice dropped lower, firmer. "You think art's supposed to be helpful? It's supposed to be honest. Sometimes that offends people. So what?" The audience was now caught between discomfort and fascination. Jimmy paused, as if weighing whether to shift topics, but something in him refused to let go. "So let's be honest, Clint. Do you think Hollywood's changed for the better or worse in the last 20 years? Clint didn't flinch. "It's changed. It's softer. Everyone's afraid of being disliked. We used to make movies about hard truths. Now we make movies about safe ideas. No one wants to take heat. They just want applause." Jimmy cracked a smile. "So you're saying Hollywood's gone soft?" Clint's stare didn't waver. "I'm saying people have confused being loud with being brave. You can scream about justice all day, but if you're not willing to get uncomfortable, it's just noise." The air in the room thickened. Jimmy tried to pivot. "I get that. But don't you think some of the push for change, more representation, more sensitivity, don't you think that's overdue?" Clint nodded slowly. "Sure, some of it. But not if it means rewriting everything to make people feel cozy. Art's not a blanket. It's a mirror." What happened next wasn't scripted. Jimmy, feeling emboldened or perhaps irritated by Clint's stoicism, made a jab. "So you'd rather offend than evolve?" Clint's jaw tightened. "I'd rather tell the truth than bend the knee." The audience murmured. Jimmy laughed nervously. "Even if that truth is outdated?" Clint leaned forward. "Truth doesn't expire. People just get scared of it." That was the breaking point. Someone backstage gestured at Jimmy to shift gears, but Clint saw it. "Ah," he said, slowly rising from his chair. "There it is." Jimmy tried to wave it off. "Clint, come on, don't do that." But Clint had already unclipped his mic. "You invite me here, ask me to speak honestly, then get cold feet when I do. I'm not some puppet, Jimmy. I've buried more bullets in the desert than most of your writers have ideas. How with that? He dropped the mic, not literally, but symbolically, and walked off stage. His posture erect, defiant, iconic asterisk. The audience was stunned. The crew scrambled. Jimmy sat in stunned silence for a second before awkwardly shifting to commercial. The aftermath was swift and seismic. By morning, the headlines read, "Eastwood storms off Kimmel set. Legend or liability?" And unfiltered or unhinged. Social media tore itself in two. Conservative pundits hailed Clint as a martyr for truth. Liberal circles mocked him as a relic clinging to the past. In between were people who didn't know what to make of it. Was it a man standing his ground or refusing to evolve? In Clint's camp, there was no panic. No statement was issued. No apology was made. He returned home to Carmel, sat on his porch with a black coffee, and watched the ocean unmoved by the digital storm. He had always believed that a man who speaks softly and carries a big stick never needs to shout over noise. As for Jimmy, he opened his next show with a disclaimer. "Last night's interview didn't go the way we planned. Clint Eastwood is a legend. We respect his voice. But sometimes things get a little too real for prime time." He chuckled. But the strain was audible. Hollywood had changed. Audiences had changed. Clint Eastwood hadn't. And that, whether you admired him or not, was made for television that no one would forget. The media storm that followed Clint Eastwood's abrupt departure from Jimmy Kimmel Live showed no signs of slowing. But if there was one person who didn't blink, it was Eastwood himself. Back in Carmel, he remained deliberately offline, unplugged from the frenzy, choosing instead to pour himself into editing his latest film, Cutting. Reels on an old Steenbeck, as though the digital world wasn't screaming his name. Meanwhile, in Hollywood, his absence only amplified the noise. Think pieces mushroomed overnight, some defending his principled stance, others branding it arrogance. But the industry insiders, those who had worked beside Clint, knew this was nothing new. He had always walked his own path. If anything, this moment only cemented what many already believed. Eastwood didn't play by anyone's rules but his own. Asterisk producers from rival shows reached out discreetly, hoping to lure him into a follow-up interview. One even offered a full hour. No interruptions, no comedy, just him talking, unfiltered. His reps declined. He wasn't interested in vindication through media games. He knew how these cycles worked. They'd turn you into a pariah, then a symbol, then a meme, then forget you the moment someone else tripped over their words. But Kimmel's camp wasn't letting go so easily. Behind closed doors, his team held emergency meetings to figure out whether they should apologize publicly, double down, or let it fade. Jimmy himself was conflicted. On the one hand, he respected Eastwood deeply. But on the other, he couldn't ignore how the moment had divided his own audience. Ratings had spiked that night, but the social media sentiment had veered into chaos. Half the country accused him of ambushing a legend. The other half wondered why Clint was even given airtime if he couldn't handle a little pushback. It was a PR fireball, and it kept burning. Asterisk a week later. Jimmy made the rare decision to address the incident head-on in his opening monologue. It wasn't scripted by his usual writers. It wasn't snarky. He looked straight into the camera and said, "Look, Clint Eastwood is one of my heroes. I grew up watching his movies. Didn't bring him on to embarrass him or get a viral moment. I asked questions I thought were fair. He responded in a way that was honest to who he is. Got heated. That's on me. That's also on him. But here's the truth. We need to be able to talk to each other, even if it's uncomfortable, especially then." The audience applauded, though it was a softer, more contemplative response. It was a rare moment of vulnerability on late-night TV, and it reverberated beyond the show's bubble. Asterisk Clint didn't respond to the monologue. Instead, he finished editing his film, a quiet drama titled Dead Wood, about a Civil War deserter, haunted by the men he left behind. The premiere, held in a small Santa Fe theater, was intimate, low-key, exactly how he wanted it. But Hollywood couldn't stay away. Critics flew in from both coasts. The film was sparse, brutal, unapologetic, much like the man himself. And when the credits rolled, No one clapped at first. They just sat there, stunned, absorbing what they had just seen. When the applause finally came, it was thunderous. One reviewer wrote, "Clint Eastwood doesn't make movies anymore. It fires warning shots at a world that's lost its sense of silence." Asterisk, but the Kimmel incident lingered in public memory. It became